opportunities. So say yes to the opportunities, connect with your community, and practice. And I mean, not like practice being you as in you're something that you aren't. I'm saying just practice every day thinking I can be myself today.
That would be one of the number one things I got as far as value from our relationship when you were a mentor and I was a mentee, is you giving me permission. But you gave me permission to be myself. Wow. Last episode of 2024. Wow. So I was actually finishing sharing all the episodes with Chauncy today. And I realized this is our 16th episode, which means we did do more than one episode a month. And sometimes we did two. And I just am really proud of what we've accomplished this year in this little experiment. And we didn't really know when we started, like what it was going to become. And now it's growing. And we've got 3 of us and some really fun topics. And so I wanted to give a little lead into what the objective would be for this episode. A few weeks back, I was contacted by my HR department, not for scary reasons, even though I was nervous at first, like, oh, why is HR calling me? And they said they were hosting an event in January where they want to uplift women and help start a conversation on how women might be feeling in tech and how to give them some tips or some encouragement. And at first I was a little nervous because I was thinking, oh, I don't want to say negative things. I don't want to be like a basher, but I do feel like I have, especially actually through my relationship with Michele, have come to some terms of things that I think are helpful. So I was really honored, first of all, that somebody would ask me to help speak to women. But then as I thought about it more and what I wanted to say, I thought, well, why don't we do an episode of that? So what we're going to do today is we're going to each individually give like a message to other women in technology, women that are in business, to give them some tips or maybe just motivation for 2025. And so that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to do it in reverse order. So we're going to start with Chauncy, and we actually don't know what the other people are going to say. So this is kind of a fun, well, I'll be hearing it for the first time. So Chauncy, thanks again for joining us on this, and let's kick it off. You first.
Yeah. First off, thanks for having me for the 3rd time now. This one's the charm at the end.
Never getting away.
Yay.
You're stuck with us.
Right. That's right.
And this topic it's so personally relevant, and it's something that I never thought about in my early career. I just learned and did, and, was a nerd, basically. And nerds were not celebrated back in the day. So, it was one of those times when you realize that you were kind of an understood professional outcast along with the others. So we were just nerds together. And I think finding your allies along the way was just part of nerd survival, right? So, investment bankers being, like picking on you, or little bullying to the IT support. There's plenty of IT support, jokes out there. And I think that really, it allowed me to just be one with my fellow nerds and not even really think about gender early. And it wasn't something I thought about until a little bit later in my career, when I realized that peers that, I could see were performing either at the same level or not even were being promoted. And it was something that I noticed at some point and thought, that's weird. And I called my dad, actually, and was like, it's weird. The stories are true. And I didn't think they were. And we talked about a few things. And of course, your parents are allies to you in your early years, and hopefully later as well. And it was all about really finding those allies along the way. And he said something that he said several times to me along my life journey is, it's not what happens to us, but it's how we react to it.
Yeah.
And that was, and it's something that has stuck with me. It's like, we can't control what happens to us, but we can control our reaction to it and what we learn from it and how we go further. And for me, I think that has been the most important lesson, is learning to recognize when things aren't quite right and learning from that situation so that I can more adeptly navigate the next time. something happens. And I think taking those learnings, finding your allies along the way, and this can come in any shape and form, right? People who are on your side. Hopefully at some point, those are peers. Hopefully they are your leaders. And hopefully you can get to a point where I've had a few leaders that have been really great allies along the way. And once you find those people in your circle of support, like us here,
yes,
you start to recognize, oh, this is how it feels to be supported and lifted up. And you feel that as well by supporting and lifting up others. So, it's golden rule, basically, treat others as you would want to be treated. And I feel that really does ring true in the professional world.
Rule, and we get the little heart.
It rings true in the professional world as well. And so that's basically would be my message to you is just keep your eyes open, your ears open, learn as you go, and find your allies.
Yay. I love that you mentioned that you experienced it later in your career, because as I was thinking about this topic and kind of thinking about some conversations I've had with Michele as her being my mentor and reflecting on, like, I don't really feel like I felt this way at the beginning. I also feel like it got worse as I started to get closer to leadership, higher level roles. That's when I started to notice it. Did it happen when I was junior? Maybe I just wasn't mature enough to see it. But I definitely would second that I noticed it as I started to grow in my career and climb the ladder. So what are your thoughts, Michele? How can women, what's your message for women for the next year?
I think my initial reaction is to say yes to opportunities that come your way, just like the one, Damie, that you mentioned. And as you also described, you and I were able to work together as a mentor-mentee relationship at Virtusa, and Virtusa offered me opportunities to, join women-empowered types of conversations. They also enabled me to, and sponsored the budget to go to the Information, which is a strong tech publication here in the Valley. Well, I mean, it's an online tech publication, so it's worldwide. But they have this Women in Tech, Media, and Finance event that they had been doing for about 10 years. And Virtusa sponsored that event. And it was, at a great point in time, too, where as a senior director at Virtusa, I was holding a leadership position, and I could attend an event as a leader. And I do think that, there's a little bit to, the difference when you are a junior and when you are in a leader role. I'm hearing a lot of what you were saying there, Damie. I mean, in my career, I'm in sales. So in my career, I have always been like one of 10 or sometimes one of 20 women on an all male team. So, very early on, I was used to that. But in sales, you can, achieve success one way or another, right? Like you could prove yourself by your success in selling. And so I just kind of took that angle. But along the way, I found myself trying to succeed in a man's world by being like a man. And I became very disconnected with my, sort of feminine side. And this was around 2017, as I was, beginning to rise and starting to feel that, there's a lot of competition for leadership roles. And it's something that's known that, women will be competitive with each other over those roles because there's so few. And so, you have to navigate that too. There are some women out there that are going to be, negatively competitive. And then in other cases, just simply true. There aren't enough roles for women. It's like once I started to feel that I was losing my femininity in trying to fit in the right way, whether I was a junior or a senior, or a leader, or whatever, I realized I had to take action for myself. And so the other thing that came to mind, which sounds kind of silly, is practice being yourself. Allow your personality to come out. Go out and find the things that will talk to your spirit and that will help you reconnect to your feminine side. And I say feminine, masculine, you can look at the world as, the shadow and light. The moon, rises and the sun rises. We always have the shadow and light. And so I just talk about it that way, not to make it be like it's this bi world of, feminine and masculine, but a lot of the connections to the feminine are spoken through archetypes and myths from, gods and goddesses. And I ended up going to a mythic yoga teacher who has incorporated a lot of storytelling around those archetypes. And it's helped me watch her, in her field, which is yoga, really bring her femininity into the stories. And it freed me up to connect to that and to talk to other women. And when I'm finding those allies, it doesn't have to be a conversation just about business and the male discussion. It can be, whether it's about having your kids and being a mom, or whether it's about, oh my gosh, I love doing yoga. And I think it's just really important to say yes to the opportunities that come your way, because that will help you start to get up there in leadership roles. I mean, I've now been invited into chief. I'm now part of the University of San Francisco's Women in Leadership program. And so you've got to connect with your community. So say yes to the opportunities, connect with your community, and practice. And I mean, not like practice being you as in you're something that you aren't. I'm saying just practice every day, thinking I can be myself today. I can bring my whole self to work. And I'll stop there.
That would be one of the number one things I got as far as value from our relationship when you were a mentor and I was a mentee, is you giving me permission. Like, I didn't even realize consciously that I was seeking permission.
Sure.
But you gave me permission to be myself and to claim the right that I had. And so I love that.
Great.
Okay. So in the same vein, I've got three tips. 3 tips that any woman can take in any role that you might have, probably in tech, but also just in business in general, to help them move forward. So as I mentioned at the intro of this episode, one of the things I was struggling with was like, how do I give a good message that doesn't come across negative? Because yes, I have lost roles because I'm a mother and I can't travel as much as my male counterpart. Yes, I have people shame me because I was pregnant and supposedly I was more emotional than I should have been, or whatever, things that would never happen. Yes, I have given my idea to a man and had him speak on my behalf because I knew that I wouldn't be heard. So all of those things are true, but just sitting around and complaining and saying that's happening. There's a space for that, because we need to vent and we need to, support each other, but that is not going to be helpful. So what I've got is 3 tips that any woman can do to help them feel more empowered, feel stronger, and kind of overcome these things. So here you go. And I've done a lot of deep thinking about this, probably because I'm going to be speaking about it with my company, and there's, 30,000 people. So it's probably 10,000 women potentially that might hear what I have to say. So I've thought about it a lot. So here's the first thing. And it actually comes from something I learned at Al-Anon. So if you don't know what Al-Anon is a support group for loved ones and caregivers of alcoholics. So it's to help you deal with having an alcoholic person in your life. So I unfortunately have had that in multiple areas of my life, which is why I was in Al-Anon. And the core premise of Al-Anon is you can't be good enough to get the person to behave the way you want them to. So the first point is, it has 2 sides to the coin. The first side is, it is not your job to change the bias of somebody else. You cannot. This is what I was thinking. Oh, if I just prove myself, if I just do a really good job on this, if I say the right things in the meeting, if I adjust, as you were saying, Michele, if I change who I am to better fit in, then they'll like me, then they'll value me. Then no, that is a tail I have chased for too long. And let me just free you from that. You don't have the authority to change other people, and it's not your responsibility, and you can't. So free yourself from that. The flip side of that is they also don't get to dictate your identity. So when somebody says to you, you're not technical, or you can't contribute, or I'm not sure you're right for this, they only get to make that your identity if you receive it. So if you know you're technical or you know you're capable, they don't get to have that power. So the two sides of the coin, you don't control anybody else's perspective and they don't control yours. So when you get that, you're freed because you don't have to chase trying to prove somebody, and you don't have to let somebody's shortcoming. Because what I've found is normally when somebody says I'm not technical, they're actually not technical. Or they say you can't contribute, it's because they suck and they're threatened. So, you're not going to fix them. So that's the first point. The next point is, okay, so now what? Now that I've decided I can't control their perspective, but I'm still in this environment where I feel like I'm not being treated equal, or I'm not being heard or whatever. So it kind of goes back to what I was talking about Michele gave me permission. Use your voice. You were hired for a reason. To what Michele said too, think deeply about like, what are my strengths? What am I really good at? Like me, I'm really good at coding. I'm really good at problem solving. I'm really good at math. I'm really good. So I'm good at those things, but I'm not good at the things that Chauncy's good at or Michele's good at. So I can shine in the area that I'm good at. So when I'm in a meeting, speak up. Don't let them make you feel bad because they said something bad to you or they made you feel small, because that's what they want. They want you to be quiet. I can't tell you how many times I called Michele when we were doing our mentor relationship, and I was like, I don't know what to say, because if I speak up, they're going to make fun of me or they're going to degrade me in the meeting or in the group or whatever, and that feels terrible. But don't let them win. So speak up. And then the other thing I was thinking was like, well, sometimes you're on a meeting, especially like at my company, sometimes we have 100 people on a meeting. It is not always the appropriate business response to like speak up at the meeting. But what you do have, especially if you're in a remote environment, you have collaboration tools. You have your thumbs up on Teams. You have the chat. You have these little ways where you get to have your voice and you don't have to ask permission. You can put a thumbs up or a clap or a laugh, or you can put something in the chat and nobody can stop you. And the whole crowd sees your contribution. So that is a way for you to speak your voice without being disruptive, and also getting visibility in the fact that you know your shit and everybody else could just be whatever, however they want to be, not your responsibility. So those two things. I think if you realize that you don't have power to change other people and you're freed from that, and then you also don't let them steal your voice from you, and you start speaking up and you start engaging, that you'll be able to overcome. You might not be able to overcome the ramifications of living in a sexist world, but you can overcome some of the emotional toll. Because that's what I realized as I was working through things with Michele, is like, I'm staying up all night. I'm feeling sick. I'm having all these emotional things happen to me because it's not right to discriminate against people and to treat them poorly. So hopefully that will empower you in the upcoming year and also save you from some sleepless nights.
Very empowering.
Roar. Roar, ladies. Oh, I just remembered. I remembered my third one. Okay. It was like what I was saying at the beginning, is that you also need to be in touch with reality. If you go in saying like, I've actually asked women before, like, do you feel discriminated by men in tech? No, never. I'm like, really? Okay. So accept the reality that, I think I read a statistic, 74% of women in tech feel bro culture or discriminated, or just told that they're not smart enough because they're female. Like, so be in touch with reality, but that also means, hey, I'm 8 months pregnant and I can't travel, and there's a conference. Somebody else is going to get to go to that conference in my place. Does that mean that they're going to get a leg up over me? Maybe, but it's a personal choice because I'm balancing my life and I've decided to have a family, and I can't do the things. Does it mean I'm not as competent? No. Does it mean I'm not as dedicated? No. Does it mean I'm not as smart? No, it doesn't mean any of those things, but it also means that, you have to balance your own personal life. And maybe that does mean that somebody that is going to work Saturdays and Sundays and nights, and, they're going to be a workhorse because they have no family. Maybe they are going to get ahead more than you because you made a choice to respect your religious days, respect your family times, or whatever. It is a choice. And so those are my three things. And I hope that it inspires women and helps them.
And I hope it also inspires women to speak up too in, in situations where they see inequity. I think we've been trained to stay quiet in a lot of cases. And I think there's a lot to what you were saying, Damie, too, and Chauncy as well, right? Like it's about understanding that what you can control is your reaction to it. It's never going to be fair that a man's reaction can be acceptable and a woman would do the same thing and get a different. It's never going to be fair because we really are just different. So, it's like, but speak up if you hear somebody, verbally say something discriminating to someone. You can say, just like they tell you in all the videos we have to watch in onboardings, right? Like just say something. Stand up for your fellow women. And the other final thing I want to say is like definitely have open conversations. In the beginning, I would beg women, like, they would talk about how they got through something. But I'm like, no, I want the real question. Like, what exactly did you say in the boardroom? Like, what did you actually say to that CTO or that CM? Like, I want to know exactly what you said. I think what's interesting is now on Gong calls, when they record calls, if any of your companies use Gong, you can actually listen and watch and see how bro culture just is naturally what it is. And we just bring a different, point of view, or maybe we bring the bro culture. I don't know. But
let me ask you a question then, because as I'm hearing you, I'm thinking if I were to speak up, I'd be considered somebody who's rocking the boat. I don't know anybody that would actually hear me. I don't see that it would actually be beneficial. So let me give you a scenario and let me see what your advice would be. Like, let's do some like real time mentoring. Okay. So you're in a situation, you feel like somebody's doing something that's, undermining you or devaluing you or whatever, and you're in a meeting and you don't have written proof. You're just feeling it emotionally and you don't feel like you have allies. Like, how do you speak up? What do you do? How do you make it better? I just don't know if I have any tangible tools for that.
Oh, I've probably done this in a variety of different ways. I've done it when it's failed because it's been done with emotion. And it's been, not the point never got across because my emotion colored it so much. So I think it's, I'm trying to think of, particular moments. I think it's about write it down to yourself, get it out of your head. From the first thing, write it down. Literally, there's science to that, to actually the words coming out on a piece of paper from your brain. You can record it that way. That you can bring it to your HR. You can choose not to take any action from it, but you can still bring it to HR in order for it to be known. So I think sometimes you just have to take a little bit of a risk. And as you do get more experience, you start to understand when is a more appropriate moment or not. But also, if you are finding yourself getting active in other community circles, you can take what happened and discuss it outside of what happened. Because I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing is that, what I hear a lot of women feel is shame at the end of it. And so I think it's that act of, taking action, writing it down, getting it out of your head, venting if you need to a friend, right? Bringing it to HR once you've walked away from the emotion of it is helpful. Or if someone does this right, cut you off, you can choose to act or not act. Someone did it to me the other day and I was offended, and then and this was like a person, a gentleman who I'm friends with. And I just realized like they just don't even realize that they did it, and is it really that important that I interject back in? It may be. And if it is, I think, you can say, hey, I have a different opinion here. I look at this a bit of a different way. And that takes the sort of defensiveness of it that draws that reaction from someone and then just brings a discussion into it. So I hope that's helpful.
That is, I was gonna to say, I was thinking about a situation I was in where, like, no joke, literally this happened more than once. Somebody has come to me and said, hey, we're trying to win this client over. We've got this presentation, but they're really into diversity. So we need you to dial into the meeting. So I dial into the meeting and I'm like messaging them like, what do you want me to contribute? What can I say? They're like, no, you're not going to say anything. You're just going to be a female head in the Brady Bucks box. And I'm like, man, you think these really smart executive women that you're trying to sell to are not smart enough to realize that you brought a token woman on the call, but you wouldn't let her speak? And that's supposed to be diversity? Like, come on. Yeah. So another thing I was thinking about what you said, and this is something that I got from I had a situation happen where I felt like somebody was slighting me because I was a woman, and I was really emotional about it, very upset about it. I called Michele and I just couldn't come to terms with it. And I actually did a little bit, it's kind of like journaling, but it's sort of cognitive therapy. So I don't know if you've ever done any cognitive therapy, but it really gets down to like, but why? And it comes down to like, what is the basic trigger that you're hearing in your head that's making you feel the emotion? And in that situation, it was something like, I'm not good enough. Like, that person slighted me and that means I'm not good enough. And I was like, actually, I don't even know this person and I don't care what they think of me. So do I really need them to help me fix this bug? No. And it actually like motivated me to be like, I'm going to fix it without you. And then I'm going to like, I'm going to CC you on the email of like how amazing I was that I fixed it and I didn't need your help. So get to the heart of like why it's bothering you, because it probably isn't just that like that person said something mean. It's you thinking something that is not a positive thought that you need to like retrain. So I wanted to ask you a question, Chauncy, because I know that you're like interviewing, you're like active in the interview process. And one of the things I've been thinking about is like, what are the questions I can ask in the interview process that will like suss out if it's a sexist, crappy company to work for without like making it seem like you're looking for trouble, right? Because when I think of the questions, it's always sort of like, oh, do you treat women equally? Like, I don't know. It feels weighted. So I would love to hear if you have a question or like a strategy to determine, do I want to work for this place? Are they going to treat me like crap? Are they going to make me prove double because I'm a woman?
Well, I have a giant rubric of questions. So there's that.
Of course.
And I've highlighted the ones that I have to ask. And part of that is it's really on strategic alignment is always kind of, that's what I like to hone in on. And it's so concerning when you talk to a hiring manager and you talk about how you ask, how does this team align and measure with the strategic revenue goals? And it's like a head scratcher for them. I'm like, okay, we'll come back to that. And it's just really along that alignment and organization, and then understanding which other teams they work with closely. And then you can do the super fun LinkedIn dance of like looking for the people, sorting with a keyword of team, and then looking at the actual breakdown just of types of people and geographical. We're not going into geographical.
I was with you.
Yeah, where people are located, which time zones you're dealing with, maybe some cultural or follow the sun things that you'd have to deal with, right? And just that gives you that understanding of the teams and the compilation of those teams, and really just hearing the person talk about, this is the question that I always ask, is what is the day-to-day interaction with this role to the rest of the org? Tell me about the team. And finding out, it's more in how they answer the question, right? Because you are interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. And if they talk really openly about partnerships and they use certain words where you really do feel like there is an allyship there and there's open communication and at least some alignment and transparency, those are what I'm looking for, because you're not going to be able to find out if it's a particularly sexist organization before you get in there, realistically. But looking at posts from people on the primary teams and their tone and how they talk about success, if they have success, those are also really good indicators that at least it's a celebratory, positive environment. So those are the things that I look for. And I I was trying to remember a couple of the things that y'all mentioned, but if you can't find an ally, I do really like what Michele, what you were saying about writing things down, because journaling is so powerful. And I think we forget that a ton in tech because, we're in tech, but writing that down and really understanding where something is coming from it's just so tactile, and it just brings you out of the moment. It resets. It's like a code switch in your brain, like, woof, okay, I'm going to get out of that scenario, go maybe outside and write down how the heck I'm feeling right now to process this. And someone told me with my last layoff, they said something that was really powerful to me. They said, don't let the poison seep in.
Yeah.
And it's letting it out to process it and understand, this maybe wasn't something that was within my control. And it is, again, just how we react to it. And taking that initial, very emotional response and putting it on paper, and then talking in a group of just a safe community, whatever your safe community is. So this is ours. We all have different Slack communities and WhatsApp groups and whatever you have that you can really talk to that community of peers outside of the workplace. And there are even several online anonymous ones that you can find support. And I think it is really important. It concerns me when we don't have allies, and there have to be allies out there. So make time for that in 2025. Find your allies.
I love that question about like how you collaborate, because I was thinking like maybe they'd be honest. They'd be like, collaboration, we're going to give you a laptop.
What?
You can get a Teams channel.
What's that?
Figure it out. Maybe
Yeah.
you get SharePoint.
If they mention
Figure it
tools,
out.
yes. If they mention tools to that question, which I have had people mention, if that's the only thing they mention, that's a huge flag for me.
You'll be in Slack 24 hours a day. That's how you collaborate. What are you talking about? No, you're working with global teams 24 hours a day. Expect respond. And if you don't respond on Slack, we're going to text you, and you're going to start getting the notifications.
And you still have 10 back-to-back meetings every day, but you also,
So I've got a tip of something I was thinking as you were talking. It's not a question. So one of the things I like to do if I'm looking at a new company is I go to their About Us page. If it's all dudes and the entire board, or if the only women are HR and marketing, there's a good chance that you're, potentially going to be the token diversity hire, which, it's not fun. It's not fun just being like, join the meeting, but don't speak, because we need you to be feminine and we need you to be on the meeting to show people that we equal women, but we're not really wanting you to speak, because I don't know why, because you're a woman. Does that happen to you, Michele? Does anybody make you be the token one?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it has definitely happened. And, I will do things just like you said, like, leverage, just because I love emojis anyway. Like I was even looking on our podcast. I'm like, oh my gosh, where can I put an emoji in right now? Get your voice in there any way you can. And just remember, this is a journey. We all have to take forward steps in order for all of us to up level. I don't know what it's going to look like in the political arena in 2025, because we're hearing a lot of diversity success that we made is kind of being pulled back. But one important thing you could do if you are interviewing with a public company is you can ask them about their employee resource groups. Do they have, a women's employee resource group? Is there someone from there with whom you can speak? A lot of times if you are on that, right, and if you are on that About Us page, or if you're digging in a little more deeply, again, for a public company, you can find this data. But in a lot of cases, within their annual reports, you'll see where they actually have a mandate strategically across their executive team to increase, their diversity hiring, or, the population demographics. And so you can ask about that. You can ask about how your role interacts with that. You can ask about how your boss supports that. So I just wanted to make sure I added that. I don't know if I answered your question, though.
I think you did. Another ally that I have found is men with daughters. So especially like,
sure.
That's what I've heard, is them saying like, oh, like I heard one guy one time was like, my daughter's a master's student in a technical arena, and I didn't realize what women go through until she told me. And because that was his daughter and he respected her and he loved her and he wanted to protect her, he realized that it happened to other women. And if he didn't have that experience, he might not have been able to be that empathetic. So I thought that was interesting. Not that men can't, but I do think you're going to need men as your ally, especially if you work in a male-dominated world, because, you know, you need somebody. If the culture is that they think men are the only ones that are smart, then you need a man to be able to point to you and say, she's worthy. And I wish it wasn't that way, but I don't know any other way around it other than to have an all-female company, and then you're going to have your own other problems.
I think that is true, and it's okay to accept that. It's just part of the change that needs to happen. And as a mom of a daughter, you know, I look to my husband to be that girl dad voice. And that's why I called my dad early in my career, right? We need that balance. This is not a women only problem. This is an equality issue. And why is there a gender bias? It doesn't make any sense in the workplace, right? And that's why that's such a brilliant thing to ask about ERGs. And it's hilarious that I didn't think about that since I've started them. I started the parents ERG at my first startup. So yeah, it's you need those little communities. And I think there are a lot of companies more and more that, you know, maybe large corporations are cutting back on DEI, you know, commitments, or government company or government organizations are cutting back on that. But there are plenty of companies out there that have DEI initiatives and understand that employee resource groups are just a net win for everybody. And they take almost no time, and they increase everybody's engagement within the company and within all of the meetings and culture and all of that good stuff. So yeah, I love the employee resource groups, and I think they're really powerful.
Leverage it.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I was going to say before we wrap up is, you know, all three of us essentially have talked about the need for allies, and not everybody has allies. So I know I can speak for myself, and, you know, maybe Chauncy and Michele feel the same way, but, you know, you can reach out to us. You can comment on YouTube. We'll connect with you. If, you know, you need somebody to talk to, you can reach out to us. Michelle's doing her chief program. And then, you know, on LinkedIn, we're all accessible. So if you need somebody to be a mentee, I'm open to being a mentor for somebody, because I had such a great experience with Michele. So I would happy to do that. I am kind of mentoring a few other people, but reach out to us. What do you guys, I'm going to let both of you guys give your answer. What do you look forward to for the next year for Butterfly Bytes as we wrap up? On the spot, sorry.
I'm just excited about emojis. I want to add all of Michelle's emojis in to post-production. Yes. I'm having fun with that. So give me all the emotions. I'll make them animated.
Yes. Yes. I love that. And thank you. See, it takes our allies who accept who we are to enable the change in this world. So, you know, in 2025, I really hope that we do not give up on DEI programs. I really hope that we will continue to mentor each other, and that you will ask for help, and that you'll say yes to opportunities. And, you know, I really feel like this is going to be a very abundant year in terms of leveraging our circles and our networks. And, you know, I go out of my way to try and find women to do business with. So I hope we'll see some exciting partnerships in 2025, like we have.
Yes. Yeah. I am looking forward to more great.
And we're going to be talking about on Butterfly Bytes.
More great content. I feel like we're evolving a really unique voice, and I just love all of it. And I enjoy doing these with you guys. So I'm hoping there's more of that. And then for me personally, kind of hearkening back to what we were talking about of like, don't lose your voice. Don't let them push you down. I'm going to be more aggressive, and I'm going to be louder, and I'm going to double plus and chat on them things. And I'm going to send longer emails. I'm not technical.
Maybe shorter emails. Shorter emails are better.
Maybe use the AI to summarize what you're saying there.
Well, I've heard people say like, over communicate. Okay. you're just going to get a lot. So if they thought they were going to quiet me, watch out.
It's the red hair. It's the red hair.
It's the red hair.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, for those of you that only listen to the audio, you'll have to check out the video. I'm glad I thought of that. So Chauncy has been fantastic, and Michele is also going to be helping. We're going to start putting these things on YouTube more.
That's
so
what I'm excited
you'll
about.
get the live version of us in action. You'll get to see this red hair that I've dyed, and then the audio will be on podcast also. Yeah, the red. There's a reason why I picked red in the store. I was like, yes, I am embodying that woman right now.
Hear her roar.
Watch out. The people that really matter are the people in this call and my family, and they love me. So I'm not really worried about rubbing somebody the wrong way, because they weren't worried about rubbing me the wrong way when they said I wasn't technical.
It's my button too. Yeah. Are you technical? And I think we just have to come up with creative ways to react to that one in the future. So
yeah, well, I might start asking them technical questions when they say I'm not technical. Oh, you're more technical than me? What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? What's the regex for this? Tell me right now.
Don't look it up. Don't you be looking it up.
SQL command generated right now.
Select what?
Yeah. Anyway, no. I am joking a little bit. I am going to fight back and push back, but I do also think I have learned to be a little bit of a chameleon, and I'm finding that not every situation requires the same response. So sometimes you have to be more gentle, more diplomatic. So, be aware, and you don't want to overthink it, but you do have to be mindful about the politics. This is there. So that's what it's about, right? Anyway, I love you guys. I hope everybody has a fantastic new year. I'm really excited about what's coming forward, both in AI and also for Butterfly Bytes, and then just getting to know you guys even more through this fun experience of this podcast.
Likewise.
Thank y'all.
All right. Closing up our latest episode. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Those were jazz hands.